Hello, everyone, and welcome to Awaken to Rise, where we are teaching you how to reawaken and reconnect to your ancient feminine wisdom. I'm excited to be with Robin Mastro today as we talk about sacred altars. So welcome, Robin, and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. So anyways, can we start off first by reviewing exactly again what Vastu Shastra is? Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Vastu is the 7 to 10,000-year-old science of building in harmony with nature. It came from a body of knowledge called the Vedas, and it is from the part of the Vedas that talks about our well-being, and that's where yoga and meditation, Ayurveda, the science of medicine, the first science of medicine, it's where martial arts and Vedic astrology come from, all talking about ways to help you live a more balanced, harmonious life. And Vastu is the part about our physical structures and how they affect our physiology and our success in life.
Okay, thank you. And how did you and Michael begin using Vastu?
Well, Michael has been using this since the early 70s. He was one of the architects for Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the Beatles guru, and he learned about Vastu as a teacher of transcendental meditation and one of his architects. And he lived with Maharishi in Switzerland for a couple of years, designing spiritual centers for him in India and around the world. And it was there he came into contact with the tenets of Vastu, even though I don't think they were identified specifically as that. And with his research for many years, he really saw that it was this ancient architectural science that is something that's used in India, but was mostly used by the wealthy and the royalty. And he used that knowledge to design and build for Microsoft and Boeing back in the 80s. And then when we got together, we were living in a house in Washington State, and my health wasn't good. And we looked at the Vastu and realized that the slope of the property was wrong. We were sleeping in the wrong direction for a woman who was going into perimenopause. I was having a lot of hormonal issues that were very much related to where our bedroom was. And so when we moved, we did a tenant improvement. We changed the areas of living, and we enhanced a central area where the energy of the universe could come in and bless the house. We did a lot of different things to kind of use ourselves as guinea pigs. And we just noticed our lives began to change. And then we were teachers, we were founding teachers for the largest NGO in the world called the Art of Living Foundation. And we were teaching Vedic breathing and yoga and meditation to people in the greater Northwest. And we just started using this knowledge to help our students, because we could see, even with everything we were teaching them about meditation and breathing and yoga, they were still struggling in their lives. But when we added the Vastu, it's like it helped kick them over that edge so that their lives began to work a lot better, a lot more smoothly, and their relationships got better, and they were getting advancements at work. And it seemed as if by magic, things just smoothed out.
Oh, that's wonderful. So now, how did you originally bring this into, or how did you begin working with sacred altars, and what happened when you added the Vastu to it?
Well, before I even met Michael, and Michael and I have been together for over 35 years. So before I met Michael, I was married to somebody else, and I had a young child, and we lost everything. And we ended up homeless for like 3 weeks. And thank God we had friends. We house sat for during that time until we could get our money together to make a down payment on a rental in Kirkland, Washington. And it was, I was so grateful to have a house. I had a, like a 1-year-old child at that point. And I remember, I felt like, my life had been in chaos for quite a while in this marriage. And I decided to start doing my meditation again. And it was during a meditation that I had this incredible vision that I was walking in a forest, and there was a clearing in front of me, and it was the full moon. And I could see that. And every time I tell the story, I get chills. I got to say, it's crazy. But I could see these people coming into this clearing that I was looking at. And they were bringing things, setting them in a specific pattern underneath this full moon. And it was as if they had come to do sacred ceremony. And they had items that represented the elements. And then they placed them in a specific order. And then they had this beautiful hammered golden urn that they placed in the middle. And in that urn, it was very shiny and very beautiful. They seemed to be putting everything of value to them, and wishes and prayers. And I thought, this is so fascinating. And it's weird when you have these kind of waking dreams that it feels like time stands still, and you go, am I dreaming? Is this really, you check yourself, because you're conscious enough that you are more than just totally asleep. And when I came out of that vision, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to try this, because truly I was counting pennies for food out of my coat pockets. It was a very stressful time for us. And so we had this little 2-story townhouse, and outside the bedroom, we had a little deck. And on that deck, I decided to build myself an altar. It was a couple of days, maybe 2 or 3 days before the full moon. And I figured, okay, I'm going to just keep this out here, because the moon was bright enough. I wanted to, and I knew the energy of the full moon as it's building is very, very powerful. So I thought I'd just keep it out there for a couple of days. And I placed the items that I remembered in a certain order. And then for this golden chalice, I didn't have a golden chalice, but I had a salad bowl, and I had aluminum foil. And so I created a reflective container in the middle, and I placed my checkbook and any cards, credit cards, any extra cash that I had floating around. I put everything in that bowl, even my jewelry, and I just let it sit out under the full moon, thinking, at least it's safe up here on the second floor. And I never bounced a check again.
You just gave me chills.
Was with that money, my life totally began to change. My entire career changed. It was incredible. And it's like I just started downloading all this amazing information. And so when Mike and I got together, and he taught me about the Vastu, it blew me away, because that was like a druid ceremony, and they were very connected to the yogis in India, and there was kind of the same basic energetic philosophy being passed through the traditions. So I feel like it was just, for me, I feel like I have some connection through my energetic lineage to bring in this knowledge. And I started using this. We would do these incredible full moon ceremonies with our satsang group, and people's lives began to change. And then I decided to go back to school and get my master's degree. And that came out of nowhere. And I found this program that I really didn't understand at Antioch in Seattle. And I started taking it, and my advisor and the head of the department were PhD architects. And I didn't know what I was going to do for my graduate project, but I was on my way to India we were doing this remodel on a house we were moving into, and I felt like if I don't do something connected to what's going on in the rest of my life, I'm going to have to drop out of school. And so I went to India with this kind of seeking. I didn't really know what I was looking for. And everywhere we went, we were traveling with our guru, Shri Ravi Shankar, all the way through India, from Bangalore all the way up to Rishikesh. And every place we went, people were doing ceremony, they were doing pujas, and they were doing homas. And so there was always this incredible intricate layout of items on an altar in front of the guru. And I thought, there's something here. What if I changed where the elements were on this altar, like when I get home, and just, I wonder if you added Vastu to that, what would happen? And that's what I proposed to my graduate committee. And I started doing this for friends and family in people's lives. The first people I did were some friends that lived up the street, and they had a very beautiful altar in their bedroom. And so I said, can I just move a few of your things around? And they were very picky about their altar. It was very important to them. And I said, just, let me move a few of these things around. And I placed the elements in their energetic order according to Vastu. And I said, just call me next week and tell me if anything happens. Well, I got a call the very next day. And it was like, oh my God, you won't believe what just happened. Piece of property we had out on the floodplains of Maple Valley sold a year ago, and they couldn't contact us. They didn't know how to reach us. And they called us this morning, and they said they had been looking for us for a year. And finally, the day before yesterday, they said, somebody gave them our number, and they sold the piece of property. Because that was the agreement, that if they were able to sell it, they would give us some cash. And they have a check for $15,000 for us. And it was like every day after that, I would get a phone call from them saying, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what just happened. And it changed their lives. And it wasn't just them, it was other people as well. Little things and big things, depending on what what people were conscientiously focusing on. And also, I think it really depended a lot on if these people were open-minded and already connected to source and had a connection through their own meditation practices, if they actually were feeling this quicker or not. But it seemed that everybody experienced something. And that's what my graduate work ended up being. And our first book, Altars of Power and Grace, was based on my graduate work in this non-existent anymore graduate program called Whole Systems Design that was at Antioch back in the 90s, late 90s, when I was taking my master's degree, where I was doing it there. And so that's kind of how it all came into being. And the book came out, I guess, in the early 2000s. The year it came out, it won 10 National Literary Awards. It won Book of the Year 4 times. It was so beautiful. It had to be beautiful, because part of creating altars is creating beauty that touches your heart. Because when you feel love, and beauty is a very high vibration, when you feel that you love something, it is such a blessing. And it is a magnetic energy that draws more of that to you. So the altar is like a homing device to draw your highest intentions into physical form. And
so it doesn't really matter what your intention is. You can have all sorts of intentions with your altars, correct?
Well, with the full moon altar, yes, because that's a full moon of abundance altar. So whatever you want to create more of. But the science of Vastu is a directional science. So in my book, Altars of Power and Grace, I talk about 8 directional altars. There are 8 directions within an environment according to Vastu, and each one has a specific aspiration. And so you place an altar with the elements, earth, air, fire, wind, and space, in a specific order on the altar, in a specific direction. And when you create sacred ceremony, it tunes into a certain channel.
Okay.
that direction has a vibratory frequency of, and it supports your highest, deepest desires. And a note about desires, and I think a lot of people know this, but I think it's worth saying, is that a lot of times we get in the way of what those desires are. And so it's not to be so specific, because when you think you want something, it's sometimes different than what you need.
Right.
And so if you're having health challenges, it's better to be more open to ask for healing and support from the divine in that area, as opposed and in relationship to what it is you're working on, as opposed to getting down into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I can see
It's
that.
like if you're focused on abundance, you're not going to ask for a red sports car with cream leather line, interior. You just
Yes.
allow the universe to support you. And gratitude is essential for manifestation. I think it is like the fertilizer for manifestation, and to be aware of the subtleties, because things start changing. And unless you pay attention and acknowledge and feel grateful for even the slightest shift, it's like, when you have a grateful heart, more is given to you. And it's just like there's like an alchemical formula that I do talk about in the book that just has this magnetic attraction. And the altar is basically it's like your computer. It's like your workspace. It's where you go to do your sacred ceremony, where you sit to meditate, where you sit to do your yoga, where you in front of your yoga, for your yoga, for your journaling, for your Vedic breathing, or what other breathing exercises you do, for whatever it is that you are working on for your deep inner growth. When you sit in front of your altar, it just enhances the altar, because to me, once you ignite an altar, it's alive. And so it supports whatever you're doing for your conscious growth.
Wow. Amazing. Now you say an altar. Sometimes, do you have multiple altars in your home then?
I suggest that people only do a couple at a time. So pick and choose what you want to work on. Usually you have one that is your altar that you do most of your sacred ceremony in front of, but maybe you are dealing with, you need a new job. And maybe you have a child that is driving you crazy and you can't figure out what to do. So you have an altar focused on letting it go and giving it to God. May not be the main altar, but you also are needing this career or a career change or a job change. And so that's the altar you're doing most of your intensive work on. And that may change when things change. So maybe you get a job and you're really like, wow, that happened quickly. I think what I really want now is, like I've got the stability for the job. I want, to feel like I can bring in a relationship now. So you start working in the Northwest, which is connected to the relationship. It's connected to Venus. It's connected to love. It's connected to the mind. And when the mind is stable, you have a better time communicating with other people. And that kind of energy supports relationships. It's the air element. It brings more of what you do want.
Oh, thank you. I know you have a couple other books too. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah. Our second book is called The Way of Vastu. So to understand the science, the science of Vastu, this is a really great introduction to it. And both of those books are beautifully designed 4-color books. We published them ourselves because we really wanted them to be beautiful, and had them print them overseas and made sure that they emitted that frequency of beauty that I wanted people to feel when they were doing this kind of work. Our third book was a whole interesting story. I met somebody at Canyon Ranch when we were talking and giving presentations, and she said, I never even knew about this before. I didn't even know it existed. And she owned the largest chain of African-American bookstores in the United States. And she goes, I know people in New York. And so she took my books and she gave them to her friends who were agents in New York. And I had a senior editor from Simon & Schuster call me out of the blue and say, I want you to write a book for us. And so my third book came out through Atria, and that is called Making Room for Mr. Right, How to Attract the Love of Your Life. And that book is using the Vastu to magnetize a relationship. And it's beautiful work. I had a research group I worked with when I was writing the book, and I'd send them chapters for them to explore each chapter and get feedback. And so many of the women in that group actually got relationships or ended relationships that weren't good for them, and it changed people's lives. So it's powerful work. It's beautiful work, and it's sacred work. It's really deep work, and I think it just helps people feel like they're not alone. I think that's mostly why I do what I do. I want to empower people and give them tools that make them feel connected to source, make them feel like they're not separate, that they don't necessarily need, a lot of stuff. They just need to spend time with the divine, and have the resources to do the work that they can do to show them their power, to show them how magnificent they are.
Right. Oh, I so agree with you. So now you've been doing all this. What do you have next that's coming up for you?
Well, this is really a busy time right now. I am kind of developing a course that people have been asking me for years, ever since altars came out. It is going to be a course on the altars, and that will have a potential to lead to certification. And I'm kind of building and revamping some other courses that will kind of support that as well, help people have a very simple spiritual practice that they can do daily, monthly, and weekly, that kind of supports this whole energy. And since I wrote altars, a whole, 20 years, things change. And a whole nother level of energy came in, where I have seen this dance between the male-female paradigm and the need for more a deeper understanding and a blending and just a deeper capability of working in harmony with that energy to birth what it is we do want. So not just seeing the Vastu in terms, the altars in terms of Vastu, but in terms of a birthing process that takes both that male-female energy for really a deeper dive into what these altars can do. And that, I think, is that energy is still coming through me, and it is ancient. It is.
When you're talking about this, I'm getting chills. That is what's needed right now.
It is very powerful.
I can't wait to see what you come up with.
Yeah, so that is kind of the work that I'm doing now. And well, our business is just, it's like we're really giving the business a refresh. And I think it's due. I think it's due, and move it out into the community more so that people really see what we have to offer. I think when Michael and I first got together on our first date, we asked each other what we wanted, and we said the same things. We wanted to raise healthy, happy children and do good work in the world. And that has been our mission, our entire relationship. And we do different things given our personalities, but we both have that cohesion of our spiritual work and our commitment to be of service to other people. And for me, it's really to end suffering, because I think that so many of us feel we don't have a community of like-minded people. We don't feel connected within ourselves or with others in a way where we feel safe in exploring so much of the sacred work that is necessary on the planet. And I think it's really time now that we kind of let go of all of our, attitudes and beliefs, and just allow what's coming through now to really take hold in our lives and do that work.
No, exactly. And that's why we're here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, wonderful. Thank you for all of that. I believe you mentioned that you have a gift to share with everyone today.
Yes. I developed it's basically a ritual technique to use on the full moon to attract abundance. And it is an ebook to support that, so that you have the tools to do the work on the full moon, each full moon, and to focus on what it is you do want in your life. One of my clients, she really wanted to be in a relationship, and she did this work with a group of women in her community up in the Seattle area. And everybody dispersed over time and moved to other places, and they would do it over the phone. Every full moon, they would ignite their altars together. And 8 years later, she was consistent. She met the love of her life, and they just celebrated their 8th or 9th anniversary. And it's like they look like soulmates. I mean, they look like, they were meant to be together. And it's like, I think that, when you use your altar with the purest of intentions and you create community, it supports you to do that work and to be committed to yourself and to the group to support one another. And this is a beautiful technique to do. And every once in a while, I offer a full moon ceremony online to do, and I'll probably be doing that again soon as well. But this is something that everybody can do for themselves and for a community.
So generous of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you for your time today and all this information.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, wonderful talking to you. Thank you.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.